Hello everyone, now I'm following the story of One Piece again. Before we start, please everyone click like, and then let's start together. Now Luffy's group has to take Princess Vivi to the kingdom of Alabasta. And because they always have the eternal pose pointing to Alabasta, there's nothing to worry about. Along the way, Luffy and Usopp are singing and having fun as usual, with no worries. Meanwhile, Zoro takes the opportunity to train his physical strength further because he feels he's too weak, having failed to escape from Mr. Three Wax candle creation. As for Sanji, he cooks special dishes and serves them to the ladies. He cooks for the boys too, but tells them to get it themselves from the kitchen. One day, Nami felt unwell and fainted. Her body started heating up for no reason. Even Nami, who knows some medicine, didn't know what was wrong with her. At that moment, Luffy suspected that Nami might not be getting enough nutrients, and Sanji said that regarding eating, he guaranteed Nami ate better than anyone else, and the leftovers were for the two idiots. 13-100:106:01:03816. Then Vivi measured Nami's temperature and found it had reached a dangerous point of 40 degrees. So they had to quickly take Nami to see a doctor immediately. Vivi said there are doctors in Alabasta, but it would take many more days for them to get there, and based on Nami's condition, she wouldn't be able to endure it. But then, Nami sat up and said she was fine. And she told Vivi to get the newspaper from her drawer and look, seeing that the situation in Alabasta was now very chaotic, with an army of 300,000 soldiers joining the rebels to overthrow the throne. This news made Vivi very sad, and she had to hurry to Alabasta immediately. Otherwise, the country would fall into war, and the one who would benefit the most would be Mr. Zero. Nami understood the situation clearly, which is why she tried to act strong so they wouldn't waste time taking her to a doctor. Then Nami went out to check the way, and she blamed Zoro heavily for not helping to check the eternal pose, causing their boat to go in the wrong direction. What's more dangerous is that Nami had a premonition that their boat was heading into a storm. So, she told Zoro to gather everyone to help turn the boat around. But at that moment, the sky cleared, the waves calmed, and there wasn't much of a storm. Luffy suspected Nami was sick to the point of being delirious. But Nami was very sure she wasn't delirious, and she shouted commands for them to turn the boat around immediately. After the boat turned back in the right direction, Vivi came out from inside and said she needed to get to Alabasta as quickly as possible. Otherwise, over 1 million people of Alabasta could be in danger. At first, listening to her, Luffy's group thought Vivi was only thinking about herself and not about Nami's life at all. But at that moment, Vivi wasn't finished talking. She added that for their boat to travel at its fastest, they needed to find a doctor to treat Nami first. And with this idea, Luffy's group agreed 100%, because for their group, nothing was more important than Nami. Then suddenly Luffy saw a huge cyclone behind their boat. If they hadn't turned the boat as Nami had told them earlier, they would have been in danger. At that moment, Vivi greatly admired Nami and her heart because since the beginning, no one in the Grand Line had been able to predict a cyclone. But Nami could know in advance without using any equipment at all. Their important task now is to find a doctor on a nearby island to help treat Nami. Because the heat in her body isn't going down, it's only rising. At that moment, Zoro used his binoculars to look for an island. But the strange thing he saw was a strange person standing on the sea. When they got closer, they couldn't believe their eyes, thinking it must be a ghost. But that person was a real person who could even talk to them. Actually, that person wasn't standing on the sea. He was standing on a huge submarine. After it surfaced, armed forces on the ship pointed their weapons at Luffy's group. The captain on that ship is named Wapol, a very strange person who can even eat ships. He told Luffy's group that he wanted to travel to the Drum Kingdom and asked them if they had a log pose or an eternal pose pointing to the Drum Kingdom. When he found out Luffy's group didn't have one, he decided to just rob their ship. He started by biting off a chunk of Luffy's ship, which made Luffy's group very angry, and they started to fight back. During the fight, Wapol didn't care about them, only about eating their ship. And when Luffy tried to stop him, he ate Luffy too. At that moment, Luffy stretched his arm out very long from Wapol's mouth and then punched him, sending him flying far away. Seeing this, Wapol's subordinates were shocked and knelt down for a moment, then remembered that their leader had eaten a special fruit and couldn't swim. So, they hurried to help their leader. Nami's condition was now getting worse and was very worrying. And Luffy said that if they threw her into the sea, it might help her fever go down. During this time, Luffy was most worried about Nami. He always sat next to her, making funny faces to make her laugh. But Nami was too weak, she had no strength to joke with him. Then Sanji saw an island from a distance, and Luffy was very happy because there was hope for Nami. When they reached the island to find a place to dock, suddenly many people with guns appeared and aimed at them, not allowing them to dock because they were pirates. At that moment, one of the villagers wanted to fire a warning shot, but his hand slipped and he shot Princess Vivi. At that moment, Luffy was furious and wanted to settle the score with all those villagers. But Vivi got up and stopped him. She was only slightly injured, and she told Luffy that violence doesn't solve every problem. Then Vivi bowed her head and begged the villagers to help find a doctor for her, saying they didn't even have to dock. Seeing Princess Vivi do this, Luffy also knelt down and begged the villagers as well. At that moment, a man named Dalton, whom the villagers respected as their leader, allowed them to dock. Later, Luffy's group carried Nami and followed Dalton toward the village, leaving Zoro and the duck Karoo to guard the ship. The village Dalton led them to had quite a few inhabitants, and after arranging for Nami to rest comfortably, Dalton introduced himself, saying he was the chief of security on this island. He also said that there was only one doctor in the village, and currently she lives in a castle on the highest mountain. It was visible from where they were. That doctor's name was Kureha, and the villagers considered her to be a witch. At that moment, Sanji didn't care. Whatever she was, he just asked them to hurry and call that doctor. And Dalton said that this doctor was a bit strange. She comes and goes as she pleases, and no one can summon her. She only does what she wants. So, Luffy thought of carrying Nami to the doctor's house himself, to avoid the trouble of waiting. But Vivi and his other companions objected because the doctor's house was on a very high mountain, and they were afraid Nami couldn't endure it. At that moment, Nami regained consciousness and decided to go with Luffy. After reaching an agreement, they prepared to set off, with Luffy and Sanji leading Nami. Before leaving, Dalton advised them that they should take the back road because on the straight path, they might encounter rabbit monsters called LUPPY. But at that moment, Luffy and Sanji decided to take the straight path because it was faster. Then, along the way, Luffy and Sanji talked about this and that endlessly. At that moment, a Lapin saw them and tried to attack them. But Luffy and Sanji didn't care about it. They just kept talking as if it was normal. And when they got tired of it, Sanji kicked it, sending it flying far away. After walking for a while longer, they encountered a large group of Lapin, and this time they couldn't pretend not to see them like before. They had to quickly fight their way out and escape from them. Since they couldn't do anything to Luffy and Sanji, the group of Lapin rabbits gathered to ambush them again. They jumped up and down, causing an avalanche. Seeing the dangerous situation, Sanji and Luffy ran away from the snow. At that moment, they found a log to use as a ski on the snow, and the group of Lapin rabbits was also very cool, using logs as skis to chase them. Later, they saw a large rock right in front of them, with no way to escape. When there was no other choice, Sanji was willing to sacrifice himself to save Luffy and Nami. Then, when the snowstorm subsided, Luffy found Sanji and carried both him and Nami to continue their journey. Along the way, he saw a baby Lapin digging to help its mother, and the baby Lapin thought Luffy wanted to take revenge on it, but that wasn't the case. Luffy just wanted to help its mother. Then, when Luffy had traveled a little further, Wapol and two of his subordinates came to take revenge on Luffy. At that moment, Luffy had a very hard time dealing with them because he was carrying a burden. Luckily, at that time, the Lapin rabbit family that Luffy had helped earlier came to help fight them off, so Luffy could continue on his journey. Then Luffy reached the foot of the highest mountain, and he had to climb up to meet the doctor. Climbing such a steep and high mountain was not easy, especially now that Luffy had to carry two people up with him. But no matter what, Luffy refused to give up. He was still able to struggle and climb all the way to the top. But unfortunately, as soon as he reached the top, the snow broke and he fell back down. Luckily, at that moment, a man came to catch him in time. For this story, I will end it here for now. Thank you all for following this story with me. If you think this story is good or not, please let me know in the comments. And I would also like to ask those who haven't subscribed to the Mono Ujoranai channel yet to please subscribe to give me some encouragement. Thank you. I wish you good health and a prosperous future.